You just saw a clip from a new Netflix series based on a book entitled 13 Reasons Why. It is the story of a teenage girl that takes her own life but leaves 13 reasons behind, explaining why she did it. This has created a bit of controversy and a whole lot of conversation around the issue of teen suicide, and if in fact this show will trigger young watchers to do the same. Well, I'm joined by parent and youth expert, speaker, and author Brett Ullman, who recently wrote a blog about 13 Reasons Why. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So you've seen the series. What do you think?
As a 45-year-old, I've seen probably thousands of hours of TV in my life, and this was probably the most profound show that I've seen. Riveting, shocking, emotional, brutal. I mean, the suicide scene was brutal. I can't remember the last show that made me cry, and this one did. I think that it is a perfect reflection of where our kids are today in society, teenagers in both Canada and the US in their high school environments.
There's been, a lot of talk about the glorification maybe of suicide in this show, the talk of it being a trigger for young people who are watching. What are your thoughts about that?
I would agree. I think there's many triggers in this show. I mean, there are 2 sexual assault scenes, 2 rape scenes. There's lots of drug and alcohol use and abuse. There's bullying. There's so much conversation on triggering. But for this conversation, it's usually the suicide one people are worried about. And I would agree. I think we need to define the word triggering, too, so people don't understand that. It's the idea if someone who is suicidal or depressed, or maybe even not, but someone who watches this show and thinks, maybe this is a good way to end the pain that I'm dealing with. Remembering that suicide is wanting your pain to end, not wanting your life to end. But it leaves us with this weird catch-22. How do we have a conversation on suicide without talking about suicide?
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is, remembering too, triggering is not always a bad thing. Triggering doesn't mean you're going to do it. It just means it might bring up emotions or different thoughts. But if we're going to walk down a path of hope and healing, we might have to walk through that pain and through some of that triggering if we want to head down a path which leads us to some hope and freedom from those struggles that we do have.
So I'm going to pick up on that. So do you think that somebody watching, or a young person watching, who's thinking about this, thinking about committing suicide, might be seeing this story of Hannah thinking she's getting revenge on everybody and I want to get revenge? Do you think that could cause somebody, I mean, you don't have a crystal ball, but would that maybe entice somebody to do this?
I hear from both sides of that conversation, and I understand both. I hear school boards and churches and parents who are worried that it might make their kids go down that path, and I hear students who write me and say, I've been suicidal for years, and this show was such a breath of fresh air, just realizing the world I live in and the struggles I have, and I realize I don't want to be Hannah. I don't want to walk down that path.
So this show, I've been doing my research and watching it all weekend. I'm 4 episodes away from finishing, and it is heavy. It really is heavy. As you said, it's definitely for a mature audience. It has a mature audience rating, but you're hearing that a lot of kids are watching this.
I am. The last few speaking dates that I've had, I've asked the audience, like, who's seen this show? And it's been shocking, the amount of students who've actually said that they watch it. And I've just done some polling on social media, and it seems to be about half of every audience has seen it. And I asked kids, they say about half of my friends have seen it. Now, for a high school student, I think there can be learning from this. You said that earlier. Like, we can take a show like this and we can walk through and find some learning. And when we say kids are listening, I think we also have to realize we're talking about teens for the most part, but there are junior highs who are seeing this. And the number of junior highs that are seeing this is staggering to me. And I don't know if a junior high student has the processing ability as a junior higher to walk through suicide and sexual assault. But even going down from that, I attend a church called C4 in Ajax, and one of our families, the mom was telling me that they have a grade 3 and a grade 5, and at their kids' schoolyard at recess, the kids were playing 13 Reasons Why. Wow. And they were saying at first, in the show, the quarterback of the football team is Bryce, and they were first all wanting to be Bryce. And then it changed when you find out that Bryce is the rapist. They were playing tag, and they'd say, "Tag, you're it, you're the rapist." And I don't even know what to say to that. Like a grade 3 and a grade 5 have no processing ability on that. And I would then begin to question the idea of how are that generation raising themselves if they're watching a TV show and parents don't even know they're watching it and there's no intervention or conversations.
And this leads to the next question. What can parents do, and what kind of conversation should parents be having with their kids about this?
I think the first thing is we have to be careful that we don't make this about fear. Yeah. I think parents are just so scared. Yeah. And so I would say to a parent, if a parent is saying, hey, maybe I should watch this show with my kid. If this is the first conversation you've ever had on mental health, sexuality, drugs and alcohol, suicide, The answer is no. These should be conversations you've been having since your kids were young, at age-appropriate things, and then all the way through until however old your kid is. But I know many parents also who need to ask their kids if they've seen it. Because I think many parents just might not realize that their kids have already seen it.
Or afraid to find out their kids have seen it.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's okay to ask. And if they have seen it, then you can open up some conversations and begin walking with this with your kids. Yeah. I think that they can do that.
And I think one of the most important questions that I'm going to ask you today is, if there is a teenager watching who has gone through bullying, maybe going through depression, what would you say to that young person that's, you know, maybe even watching 13 Reasons, or maybe not, but just going through their own struggle?
I would say very simply, hold on. Yeah. What you're going through in life is a season, and seasons change. Hold on. Bruce Cockburn, the Canadian musician, used to sing, "The kick at the darkness till it bleeds daylight." And I would say this is a fight, and we need to fight. And if you're struggling, we need to walk through those conversations. First, I would say, please go and talk to an adult. Go talk to your parents, go talk to your teacher, go talk to a youth pastor. And unlike in 13 Reasons Why, where all the adults just seem incompetent, that's not real life. In the show, that's the way it is. But if one adult is incompetent, find another adult and talk to someone else. And I just say you're not alone. I struggle with anxiety and depression and panic. I had a breakdown a few years ago. I spent a year at home. And I say in my Walking Wounded talk, we need to address these things from 3 different places. One is the physical aspect. Go see a doctor, right? Make sure there's nothing physically wrong with us. Eat better, sleep more, all those kinds of things. And then go find a counselor who can help you get some strategies on how to help you in these, doesn't matter if it's bullying, suicidal thoughts, depression, how can you walk through that journey? And then lastly is our faith, right? Prayer, and then prayer groups and community around us. And it's all those things put together which will help you walk this path towards what we want, which is freedom.
Well said. Thank you, Brett, for your time.
Thank you.